Yes, welcome back. Akim Akinwale is a professor of Employment Relations and Labor Studies, Department of Employment Relations and Human Resource Management, University of Lagos. He joins us next. Good morning, Prof. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Good morning.
Now, Labour has since gone ahead. They had a meeting with the NSA and they released a statement saying that, well, yes, it's been suspended. And so they're looking to see further actions and investigations by the federal government, hence the statement that was signed by the Labour leaders. So taking us, let's go ahead and get your perspective on this matter. Yes, it might have been brief, but there you go. Suspension of the indefinite nationwide strike. They did reference the scenario that played out in Owerri and what they're also asking the government to do. So, so that is your area, labor relations. What was your analysis, your impression of how all of this played out?
Okay, thank you very much. The suspension of the strike is good news. This kind of strike is not expected to last for more than a few hours because it is a strike that arose from a setback in the labor union struggle for the defense of the rights of workers in Imo State. Historically, it is well known that leaders of organized labor have suffered a lot of attack by their antagonists, including employers, government officials, police officers, and state security operatives. So what happened in Imo was quite unfortunate because every citizen deserves protection from the state. The personality of the president of Nigerian Labour Congress made the case to be more serious because if organized labor did not take the kind of action that the organized labor has taken by first declaring strike in Imo State, aviation unions embarked on strike in Imo State last week. The event occurred on the 1st of November. So, and government had enough time to respond quickly. So that kind of situation deserves rapid response. But the government side did not do the needful on time. And immediately the organized labor put pressure on the government to do the needful. And part of the initial demand was the redeployment of the Commissioner of Police in Imo State. So that redeployment was based on the request from the organized labor. Because when the labor leader was attacked and taken away to an unknown destination in the first instance, that sent a wrong signal to the labor group. And immediately the labor leaders began to press button, began to mobilize. And they even declared the governor of the state a persona non grata. And that should have sent a serious signal to the federal government that, oh, this situation requires urgent and immediate attention. So it was part of the pressure put by the labor that eventually made the president of Nigerian Labour Congress to be transferred to Federal Medical Center in Owerri for treatments. So if not that labor leaders put pressure, no one knows what would have happened because it was a wrong signal. So that was the premise of this current general strike, which was a kind of surprise package because it was not supposed to be. So this strike is preventable, but the way the labor leader was attacked was quite inappropriate. And yes, the labor shouldn't have kept quiet. So, and the pressure that the labor leaders put on the government started from Imo State, but they did not get enough response. The kind of response they got was inadequate, and that explains why they extended the strike to other parts of Nigeria by making it a general strike. Because Labour we want to protect itself, and this strike is basically a strike that was declared in order to maintain and enhance the power of Labour leaders. If that is not done, that could portend danger for the future of a Labour movement in Nigeria. Because if this attack was treated with kid's glove, so no one knows what could have happened to Labour leaders in the future. And if Labour leaders are captured, it means the hope of the working class may go down the drain. So that's my initial reaction to the current situation. And of course, the federal government has done well in responding to the general strike. The National Security Advisor and other stakeholders immediately met with Labour union leaders. Although initially the government response was that of denial and counter-accusation, blame game, but it didn't take too long before the government did the right thing by discussing with the Labour union leaders. And of course, some headers from Imo State also visited the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress in Abuja in order to appeal to him to move in the direction of peace. So all stakeholders discussed, and the agreement was reached, and on the basis of that, the strike was suspended. But this should be a lesson for all parties concerned, that anything that has to do with security should be treated with immediate response. So the government should not wait for too long before responding. If anything happens to any citizen of Nigeria in any part of the world, whether at home or abroad, so the government needs to immediately take action in order to forestall breakdown of law and order. So also the labor union also needs to learn some lessons, because the time of the rally in Imo State possibly it was close to the election, the gubernatorial election, you know, and the atmosphere was tense, and that explains how the action of the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress was interpreted to be partisan politics, because the rally that was organized, you know, was meant to defend the right of workers in Imo State, because there is a belief that many workers in Imo State have not received their salaries. So available information shows that about 11,000 workers have not received salary for about 20 months. And that was part of the issues that led to the intervention by the national leadership of the Nigerian Labour Congress. So, but the rally that was planned to commence on the 1st of November, while the period of election for gubernatorial election was scheduled for 11th of November. So you could see the time of election was quite close to the time of the rally. And so that explains how some people may interpret the action of the president of Nigerian Labour Congress to be partisan politics. So,
well, Mr. Akinwale, it's a good thing, shall I say, Professor Akinwale, it's a good thing that you have provided context. I do not know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. It's a great thing that you provided context and explained what it is that Labour would have sought, the points that Labour would have sought to press home with this strike. And also how it might have been interpreted on the part of the state government, the Imo state government. But people will also say, look, first, no matter how threatening any state government feels, should it resort to assault on the person of a Labour leader, the big questions are around that, you know, because the allegation that Labour leaders have made and the unions keep making is that the officials who carried out the assault on the Labour leader were officials of the state government whom they can name, and also they were led by members of the Nigerian police force. Isn't that a bit, will I say, shocking, especially looking at how far we've come in this democratic dispensation?
Yes, it is shocking and disturbing, and that's the reason why the Labour leaders did not take it lying down. That's the reason why the Labour leaders took up the matter and pursued it to a reasonable degree that got the attention of the federal government, because the matter could have been resolved at state level, but because the contestation, the crisis involved the key players in Imo State, state actors and non-state actors in Imo State. So really, what happened was quite unfortunate and was disturbing. And even if the victim is not a high-profile person like President of Nigerian Labour Congress, like I said earlier, any citizen at all deserves protection. And the governor of the state is the chief security officer of the state. And every citizen in that state and in any other state in Nigeria should be protected at all times. So if they are even if the attackers are not government officials, or if the attackers are not supported by the police has a responsibility to protect all citizens. And particularly, the police command in Imo State was aware that there was going to be a rally on that day. And during rally, the police has a responsibility to provide security for all citizens, including protesters, or including activists, or any member of the society. So it's clear that the government of Imo State failed to guarantee that, you know. So, and that was part of what led to the escalation of the political crisis in Imo State. It was, it can be interpreted as a political crisis that was extended to the whole of the country. So it is a systemic crisis. In a systemic crisis, whatever happens to a part can spread to the whole. And that is exactly what happened in this case that we are talking about. So it is quite unfortunate, it is disturbing, and other states should learn from this, and this should not repeat itself. Other state governors need to learn from what has happened, so that they should not just overheat the Nigerian system, because people have enough issues in their hands to deal with already. And nobody should throw cog in the wheel of progress. So the labor union and the government have been negotiating for improvement in working conditions. The last strike that was supposed to occur on the 3rd of October this year was aborted, you know, as a result of the dialogue between the federal government and the labor union. And this kind of strike that just erupted is unnecessary and should have been prevented. But
I think that brings me to my next question, Professor Akinwale. Okay. In terms of the response of government to the issues that Labour raised. Yes, we see that many times Labour would raise, you know, if anything happens, you know, Labour will have their response. Their demands can be, you know, humongous, you know, in such a way that, and Labour will say, well, it is open to negotiation. This is what we are asking for, but we're open to negotiation. And then we see a back and forth, and, you know, oftentimes there's meetings between government and Labour. But on this particular issue, Labour did not hide the fact that this was about the NLC president. When I mean Labour, now I mean the NLC and the TUC. You didn't hide the fact that this was about asking for the arrest and possible prosecution of those who had assaulted the Labour leader, the NLC Labour leader. So I'm wondering, when you look at government's response to certain things, so this was pretty straightforward, and as you said, it need not have resulted in a strike action. There was a threat of a strike action, which Labour kept on putting forward, and what they wanted for you to avert that. So when you look at that and you look at government's response many times to Labour demands, do you think that government really takes Labour seriously enough?
The answer to your question is no. So governments need to do more. Governments need to engage with Labour more. Government need to be more proactive rather than being reactive. So sometimes it's when there is problem that the government will begin to think of how to put a stop to it. Government should rather focus more on preventive conflict management rather than being reactive. So the government has done well in the area of providing first aid response, but we need to move beyond first aid response to embark on a comprehensive treatment of pending issues between federal government and organized labor in Nigeria. Really, when we go back to the history of labor movement in Nigeria, we can learn clearly that the government needs to change its approach. The approach from the government has not been satisfactory. So it is either the response is ad hoc, haphazard, incomplete, first aid, palliative. So we need to go beyond that, and we have established structures that can be utilized to strengthen the engagement between labor union and the federal government of Nigeria, even right from the period of colonial era. So there were machineries that were put in place to make the interaction between labor and government very robust, very cooperative. And government need to know that.
Just a moment. I don't know if you can hear me. I understand my colleague Ayo also has some questions for you quickly. Ayo.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mokwe. Prof, excuse me, just a quick clarification of something you said earlier. You said available data says about 11,000 workers have not been paid in Imo State. Is that correct? If you can unmute yourself, we can hardly hear you. Can you hear me now, Prof?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good. I said available data. You said that the available data says about 11,000 workers have not been paid for a while in Imo State. Is that correct?
Whether it is correct or not requires verification. So
but that's the figure. That's the figure that you gave. That's the figure that you gave.
Pardon?
That is the figure that you gave.
Yes.
Okay.
If you check the news, you will get that information in the media. If you check the news, so that information is in print.
Okay. Well, the reason I'm asking is over and over again, the Imo State government has said that salaries are up to date in Imo State. So when you say this, I'm wondering, first of all, how reliable that data is, and whether you, as someone who studies, labor activities, workers' welfare, and all of that, is how authentic do you think that information is?
Now, when you look at the claims of the government versus the claim of the organized labor, you can see discrepancy. So, and from the claim of the government is claiming that before January 2020, when the governor came to power, no worker in Imo State had received minimum wage. So that shows that the governor is also providing useful information that Imo State is among the states in Nigeria where workers have not received minimum wage for several years. And the current governor is claiming that he has done better than his predecessors. So there's a fact from that statement, right? And when we look at the claim from organized labor, you can see that the labor does not agree with the governor that all the workers in Imo State have been receiving their salaries as at when due. So This requires intervention from the federal government, either by setting up a committee or by using existing machinery to look into the claims and counter-claims and bring out the veracity, check to authenticate who is saying the truth and who is lying between the two sides.
It's interesting, Prof, that, we put it this way because the workers in Imo State, they are members of Labour. And this is a question we've put forward from time to time. In most cases, Labour movements in Imo State, particularly in recent times, have hardly been heard. There was a time that we understand that, the state government was interested in how the leadership emerged of Labour, how the leadership of Labour emerged in Imo State. And as a result, the national leadership of Labour came up with a caretaker committee. Let's see if we can, look at that issue in the first place. Do you think it is right? First of all, is it correct, in your opinion, or from what you know, that the Imo State government is interested in who emerges leader of its Labour movement? And secondly, how right, in your opinion, is it that the government of a state is interested in the leadership of the Labour movement in that state?
This is a very interesting question. It is not only in Imo State, in almost every state, the government would want to rally the Labour leaders in order to ensure peace and harmony. And that is not a wrong belief, provided both parties mean well for the rank and file, for the working class. But a situation whereby the governor is romancing the Labour union leaders at the expense of the welfare of the worker, that is where the problem lies. So every government will want to cooperate with Labour leaders. Every government will want to entice the Labour leaders in order to have a cordial relationship. They are not supposed to be enemies. They are supposed to be partners in progress. The government side, the governor or government officials and Labour leaders are supposed to be partners in progress because they must work together. The Labour contributes towards policy implementation in every state. So it's not only in Imo State, government always want to befriend Labour leaders in order to have a good understanding. But by the time that kind of close interaction between Labour leaders and the government is affecting the welfare of the workers, by the time the Labour leaders begin to look the other way by pretending that all is well, that is where there is problem. And I think that is the situation in Imo State and some other states in Nigeria. So that kind of situation is what led to intervention by the leadership of the Nigerian Labour Congress. But I think that kind of intervention should also not be limited to Imo State. It is not Imo State where workers have grievances. Even workers in Kogi State have been receiving percentage salary for some years.
It's interesting when you my apologies for butting in. It's interesting when you bring up the fact that there are other states that this has been going on for quite a while, and it would seem like not much has been done. Well, this is ongoing conversation, no doubt, Prof, and we'll definitely bring you back some other time. Akim Akinwale is Professor of Employment Relations and Labour Studies, Department of Employment Relations and Human Resource Management at the University of Lagos. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Truly appreciate it.
You are welcome.
Well, some further perspectives on this when we return from this break. Do stay with us.